I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the state puts out its newest report on water use. We'll tell you how San Diego's doing in its efforts to conserve.
They're recording city council members, and they're using it for extortion.
A border town's police department is under federal investigation. Its chief says union leaders are acting like the mob. We'll have a special report from our Fronteras desk.
And deaths continue to rise in San Diego County. I'm Peggy Pico with analysis and what's being done to reverse the trend. Plus, the science of making a new habit stick. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. The state has put out its newest water report card with some good news for San Diego. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser joins us from the newsroom with the numbers. Claire, this report covers November. How much water did San Diegans use?
On average, they use 64.5 gallons a day in November. That's down from an average of 76 gallons a day in October.
Now, do we know if the mandatory restrictions that the city passed had anything to do with the lower water usage?
It's hard to say for sure. Those limits on when sprinklers can run and when plants can be watered started on November 1st, so they likely encourage residents to cut back. But water use also typically drops in colder months, and San Diego got more rainfall than average in November. A better comparison might be to look at San Diego's average household water use in November 2013. When we do that, we see usage in November 2014 drop slightly from the same month the previous year.
Now, Rancho Santa Fe got some national attention a couple of months ago for being the biggest water user in the state. Where does it stand now?
In September, it was the biggest user, but it lost that dubious distinction in October, falling to third place. In November, it stayed in third place behind water companies near Riverside and Anaheim. Rancho Santa Fe residents also cut back their water use from October to November by 27%.
KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser. Thanks, Claire. Work is now underway on California's controversial high-speed rail project. Ground was broken today in Fresno for a 29-mile line north to Madera. Critics don't like the initial route.
But by carrying people in that area and they're not taking them to or from population centers, I don't see any way in the world it can work out. It's a dream that cannot be fulfilled.
They also don't like the $68 billion price tag. The project still faces challenges from Republicans in Congress and from Central Valley farmers who are suing to keep the rails off their fields. A new watchdog report says drones are dubious achievers when it comes to border protection. Homeland Security's Inspector General says drone flights cost much more than originally estimated, and they helped in just a fraction of the arrests made by border agents. Customs and Border Protection disagrees with the findings. A Navy officer has pleaded guilty in a bribery case involving a defense contractor. Jose Luis Sanchez was accused of taking bribes in return for steering Navy ships to a company based in Singapore. Sanchez will be sentenced here in San Diego in March. Carlsbad High School will reopen tomorrow, that after being shut down because of an online threat. Investigators are still trying to figure out who put up an Instagram post that threatened to shoot up the school. Carlsbad Village Academy was also closed down. There is now a $25,000 reward in the case of a baby found dead in an Imperial Beach dumpster. 3-week-old Eliza De La Cruz was found Sunday afternoon, the day after her parents and uncle were shot and wounded in Long Beach. Police say they have no leads in the case and no motive. For 5 years in a row, methamphetamine arrests and deaths in San Diego County have continued to rise. That's according to the latest Meth Strike Force report card. Peggy Pico finds out why and what can be done to reverse the trend.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection reports 64% of methamphetamine entering into the U.S. last year was seized at the San Ysidro, Otay Mesa, and Tecate ports of entry. That works out to 14,732 pounds of meth seized at those ports alone. Here with more on the scope of the problem and its local impact are my guests, San Diego County Undersheriff Ed Prendergast and John Richardson, VP of Mental Health Systems, a nonprofit drug and alcohol rehab provider here in San Diego. And Ed, the strike force reports that in the last 5 years, meth death rates were up 93% between 2009 and 2013, and there were about 2,500 more meth-related arrests during that same time period. Why is meth use in our county on the rise?
Well, for a number of reasons. Demand is high. The price is low. You can buy an ounce of meth now for $400. So the combination of, and the meth users say it's very easy to get. Over 83% of them say it's easy to get, according to our survey that's reflected in the report card.
Do we know why it's cheaper?
Why it's cheaper is because it's coming in from Mexico, and we're getting large volumes, as you stated, coming in from Mexico, which has driven down the price.
And John, who, if you could tell us kind of a profile, who in San Diego County is using meth?
There is no really unique profile. Meth goes across all profiles, all demographics. It's from teenagers on through. We are finding, though, lately that the age of the meth users coming into treatment and being arrested is a little higher. It used to be around 25 to 30 years old on average, and we're looking at people up in the 30s and their 40s now on average. And a larger number of women are coming into treatment for meth use.
What kind of impact I'll start with you, John, does this have on our community, having an increase in this steady climb of meth users?
Well, I think the steady climb is because of, some meth users have been meth users for a long period of time, and now with the easy access, the meth use is up. And the impact on our communities and families, the children of the meth user, the spouse of the meth users, the employers of the meth users, the community as a whole, the criminal justice population that is involved in meth. If you live in an apartment complex and there's meth use going on, it affects the children, it affects the community as a whole.
Well, Ed, we were talking about this Mexico connection here. Now, 15 years ago, San Diego County was actually considered the meth capital of the country. That's changed because the DEA said in 2013 that they had no meth lab seizures here in the county. So that seems odd to me. Is this, I guess the drugs then, are they all coming from Mexico? Is this where we're getting it?
We're looking at about 80 to 90% of the methamphetamine consumed in the United States is coming from Mexico, and about 60 to 80% of that is coming through San Diego.
So is there something being done as far as the border agents or the feds doing something to try to stem that manufacturing or that flow from Mexico here into the U.S.?
Well, absolutely. I think the increase in the border seizures reflect on intelligence-led policing and cooperation between federal, state, and local agencies trying to stop it. In Mexico in 2008, they banned the sale of pseudoephedrine and ephedrine, which help reduce the availability of that to be manufactured into methamphetamine. But the Mexican drug cartels are now using a different method to make the methamphetamine, and it's still coming across in large quantities.
And in fact, I understand in liquid quantities.
Yes, a percentage of it, about 13% of that seized last year, was in a liquid form.
Okay. John, what do you see as the answer to this as far as stemming the addiction of methamphetamine here on this side of the border?
On this side of the border, the answer is working together with law enforcement, the Health and Human Services Agency, and community-based organizations such as ours, and finding ways for people to find treatment and get into treatment, because treatment works for methamphetamine addiction, and recovery really does work for people, and doesn't just change their drug use, it changes their entire lifestyle.
Well, what kind of treatment, if you could just give us a nutshell, is it different than, let's say, AA for alcoholics? Is it more intensive? What treatment works? Well,
the treatment for methamphetamine, it depends on where they're at, and most methamphetamine addicts are so tied into the methamphetamine lifestyle that they're either pre-contemplative or contemplative in their mindset as to that they have a problem or they need help. So working with law enforcement helps them understand that they need help and gets them to us, as well as working with people that are now in jail that are getting some treatment while they're in jail, and then hooking up with community-based organizations to get the treatment that not only deals with the drug is only a fifth of the quotient, to deal with their biological, their psychological, their social, and their spiritual malady, which is all a piece of the addiction. We have to deal with all of it. And so in treatment we do using motivational interviewing, using cognitive behavioral therapy, using socialization therapy.
Well, there's a lot more to talk about on that angle of it, so we'll have to end it there. John Richardson and Undersheriff Ed Prendergast, thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity. We do want to promote the Meth Strike Force, and we do have a website, no2meth.org, if people want more information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Calexico has a new police chief and some big problems for its police force. The chief says the department is plagued by extortion and professional misconduct, and there's an FBI investigation underway. Fronteras reporter Jill Replogle has that story.
Calexico, California, population 39,000, is surrounded on three sides by fields of lettuce, broccoli, and alfalfa. On the fourth side, the city butts up against the U.S.-Mexico border fence, and the city of Mexicali on the other side. You're more likely to hear Spanish than English on the streets of Calexico's downtown shopping district. It's the kind of town where everybody knows everybody and everybody's business.
Calexico Police Department is raided by the FBI.
But many locals said they were surprised when the FBI paid a visit to the police department in late October.
It was around 9:45 that 30 FBI agents raided the Calexico Police Department. They seized computer hard drives, documents, and other potential evidence as part of an ongoing investigation into potential criminal activity by some members of the department. The big question is why.
4 cops were put on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. One of them was fired shortly before Christmas. The FBI won't comment except to say that the investigation is ongoing. But Calexico Police Chief Michael Bostic speaks openly about some of the things he's found wrong with the department since he took over in October. He says leaders of the Calexico Police Officers Association, that's the union, were, quote, acting like the mob, unquote, intimidating good cops and threatening residents who presented complaints about officers. Calexico's former police chief was fired and Bostic appointed just 2 weeks before the FBI showed up. Bostic is a former assistant chief from the Los Angeles Police Department, and he's made a name for himself doing internal cleanups after police scandals, namely the Rodney King beating and the Rampart corruption scandal. Bostic says when he got to the Calexico PD, he found almost no real police work going on.
I have an investigation unit, the former investigation unit, that was investigating no crimes, told me they had no narcotics investigations going on. They were also responsible for the internal affairs investigations, and they didn't know where any of those were. Well, it turns out they weren't going on. They were putting them in desk drawers and putting them away and hiding them, hoping the statutes run. You know, I know how the game is played. I've been a cop for 4 decades.
Bostic also says leaders in the police department used around $100,000 in seized assets to purchase high-tech tools for breaking into cars and buildings.
So I have all these tools and everything that have obviously been used because they're new, but they're worn, and yet I have no search warrants.
He says whatever they were doing with that equipment, it wasn't legal. They also bought James Bond-like surveillance equipment, like hidden eyeglass cameras.
I literally cannot think of any legitimate reason why a department the size of Calexico would have that kind of equipment. And then when the FBI is going through that equipment and starts looking in the recording, they're recording city council members. And they're using it for extortion. I can say that. That's just true. That's what they were doing.
Bostic says leaders of the police officers union are behind all of this. He says he doesn't yet know exactly why they were doing it, but at the heart it was all about gaining power. Union leaders wouldn't comment for this story, but their lawyer, Michael McGill, says they plan to sue the police chief for slander.
There just is no factual support for some of the allegations that he's made. The whole thing just sort of stinks of a political issue.
Is there now any other further discussion?
McGill suggests that several Calexico City Council members have misled the new police chief into believing there's misconduct among his officers. He says he thinks these council members are retaliating against leaders of the police union for actively campaigning against them for many years. Relations between the Police Officers Association and certain city council members have definitely been hostile. Case in point, this banner put up by the union during last year's campaign season calling Councilwoman Maritza Hurtado a biohazard. Hurtado was reelected. Other city council members, including Luis Castro, are accused by Police Chief Bostic of being part of the police union's alleged extortion racket. Castro says the accusation is false. He says, yes, he's friends with a lot of police officers because he's lived in Calexico for 43 years. He thinks the police union leaders haven't done anything wrong. He says the city manager and police chief are exposing the city to years of litigation.
They are innocents. I believe Richard Warren and Michael Bostic, they are creating lawsuits against the city of Calexico.
In the community, feelings are mixed on the police scandal. George Romandia is a manager at a downtown department store.
I suspect if they find something, it won't be anything too diabolical. I mean, maybe they'll find some procedures that aren't too good, or maybe they violated some rules of conduct, but I doubt it'll be anything serious.
Others say it was high time for a cleanup.
There's been a lot of, if not illegal, certainly unethical behavior by the police. They bully other members of the police force, and they bully the citizens. They try to intimidate the city council. I think heads are going to rule.
Police Chief Bostic says he'll release results of an internal audit of the police department this month. The FBI has given no timeline on when it expects to conclude its investigation. Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
Video journalist Katie Shuloff helped produce that story. The Calexico Police Officers Association filed a government claim for damages against the city, the police chief, and the city manager. It is a precursor to a lawsuit. The claim includes charges of defamation and retaliation against the union and its leaders. Just in time for New Year's resolutions, City Heights is getting a new gym. Speak City Heights reporter Megan Burke says the new YMCA is bringing life back to an iconic San Diego street corner.
El Cajon Boulevard used to be known for its car dealerships. This one in particular.
See Pearson, Ford, they stand alone at Fairmont and El Cajon.
Now when you arrive at Fairmont and El Cajon.
Welcome, my name is Baron Hurdlin Doherty, and I work for the YMCA of San Diego County. And we are in our newest branch that's going to open in less than a month.
The Copley Price Family YMCA fills the 3.7-acre lot where San Diegans kicked tires and haggled salesmen from 1966 to 2009. The $34 million facility features a gymnasium, fitness center, demonstration kitchen, and 2 pools. One pool is even in a glass structure with a retractable roof. It's a drastic improvement from the neighborhood's existing YMCA facility that was built in 1956.
It's pretty darn old, and it's a great facility, a lot of good spirit. You feel the spirit of the Y, yet the tool is not as sharp as it needs to be to serve the people.
The Y had planned to rehab its old gym until Price Philanthropies donated the old Ford lot. The Y broke ground on the property in October of 2013.
And that acreage is in the middle, right in the melting pot, if you will, between Kensington and City Heights. And so the plan, the strategy, and Ys have done this all over the country, is we want to bring both communities together and kind of have them exercise, work out, participate together.
YMCA staff say signups from Kensington and nearby Talmadge are trickling in, but the organization's focus on the area's refugee community also remains. About 1,000 members from the existing City Heights Y will transfer over, some of them Muslim women who started coming to the Y for women-only swim hours. Their religion requires modesty, so they can't swim in front of men. Staff at the new facility will meet with the women later this month to make sure their needs are met. Crews will likely install screens or curtains in the glass pool enclosure to keep passersby from peering in. And the new Y will also maintain extended hours that benefited East African cab drivers who work long days.
It's really one of the greatest opportunities we have to make exercise more familiar and then build a community. It doesn't matter who you are, that we want to serve you in an equal way.
Herdlin Doherty says the Copley Price Family YMCA is the nation's nicest and newest, but its past as a car dealership still pokes through as he talks about the transformation.
I mean, we're going from a Volkswagen to a Cadillac overnight, so it's really a blessing.
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
About 45% of Americans make New Year's resolutions, but most people don't keep them. Peggy Pico explains the science behind kicking a bad habit or making a good one stick.
Lose weight, spend less, save more, spend more time with family, and quit smoking. Those are among the top 10 New Year's resolutions, so says the Journal of Psychology. And those seem like noble endeavors, but here to explain why it takes more than willpower to succeed are my guest, Tina Grummel, a brain researcher at UC San Diego, and psychotherapist and addiction specialist, Matthew Bruin. Now, Tina, biologically speaking, what happens in the brain when a habit is being formed?
Well, our action system changes from a goal-directed to more of a habitual process. And so what happens is that these brain connections between two neurons start strengthening in the circuit's underlying habits.
The cells actually start strengthening.
The connections between the cells start strengthening, so that communication between them goes smoother.
And is there a particular part of the brain that's involved in this?
Yeah, so we know that for both actions, goal-directed actions and habitual actions, that the cortex sends information down through the basal ganglia. Now, the part of the basal ganglia underlying habits is called the putamen.
So there's an actual specific part of the brain that you can watch this happen when somebody's trying to form a habit.
Yeah, so animal researchers have looked at the activity of neurons, and people have looked at the imaging of brains in humans.
And it's about the same.
Looks about the same.
I see. Now, Matthew, practically speaking, when you're trying to form a habit, what has to happen in order to form that habit?
Well, a couple things. Repetition, and also usually a desire to implement the behavior.
Are there certain things with that repetition, like that trigger it, for instance, like you come in and I'm thinking of starting your car, right? That you always pick up the keys with your right hand. They're always here. Are there certain things that have to happen in the same order, that sort of thing, and environmental triggers?
It doesn't have to happen, but usually there's something that is repeated multiple times where there's a specific outcome that generates that line of behavior.
How long does it take to actually form a habit?
You know, there's various answers to that question, and none of them seem to be the same. The original idea was somewhere between 18 and 21 days, the whole 3-week philosophy to build a habit. Most research now shows that that's not necessarily conclusive. There's a lot of different factors. Everyone's brain's different, and behaviors are all different. So it could range somewhere for 2 months, and for some people it may take longer than that. We don't really know.
And I understand it's based on maybe the complexity. Learning how to brush your teeth every night maybe not be as hard as quitting smoking.
It could
Correct?
be.
Okay. Tina, is there a physical reason why it might be easier to form a bad habit, let's say eating cookies at 3 o'clock every day, as opposed to forming a good habit, let's say eating broccoli for dinner?
Well, there may be something. What we're finding with drugs of abuse is that drugs may actually independently strengthen the circuits that underlie habit formation. So it could be that perhaps some activities we do may alter the circuits more than others.
I'm going to ask both of you this, and I'm going to start with you. There's some research that suggests that willpower is something that is expendable. You use it up and you deplete it, and it has to be replenished. Is that something that you find to be true?
I don't think that there's a lot of work at my end examining that particular topic, I guess. But when we think of willpower, we think about self-control. And both habits and other behaviors are under our control. It's just why do we do them?
And let me ask you this, Matt, on that same note then, let's say willpower isn't all that you need in order to successfully make or create a new habit and keep it. Correct. What would be ways that you could create a new habit?
Having a good plan with short, intermediate, and long-term goals as markers to help you move forward in a even-paced way. Support, both socially or professionally, someone to help motivate you and keep you on track is also a key component, as well as ways to identify and gain pleasure or have a reward for moving in the direction that you want to go. All three of those things are important components of forming habits and continuing on.
So kind of to recap, small attainable goals. Don't say I'm going to lose 100 pounds, but maybe how much you're going to lose each week, and then rewarding yourself, probably not with food, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Tina, when it comes to the brain, are there certain things we can do to increase the likelihood that we will form those nerve connections and form a habit?
Repetition. It seems that habits can really come about when we do the same thing over and over and over again. So while it may be hard at first, the more we do it, the more likely that these circuits are going to be strengthened and increase the likelihood of our behavior.
All right. Well, we have a lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Tina Grimmel and Matthew Bruin, thanks so much.
Thank you. Much.
Here's the award-winning entry of a national art contest painted by students at Delmar Pine School in Carmel Valley. The Weiland Foundation sponsored the contest with a theme of Our Ocean. The winning mural points out a dramatic drop in the sea turtle population.
It's nice that we made something that put an impression on people that we really did care about the ocean, we really did care about the fish in it, and that it's important that we get this message out.
It's like almost all of the world, and when that gets polluted, other things can come from it, like defective fish, dying animals, and a lot of other things.
Delmar Pines will get $250 for art supplies from the Weiland Foundation. They plan to donate the award to a local hospital so sick children can have the opportunity to create art. Today, hot spot of the week for us here in San Diego. Temperatures are about to start dropping, however, mid-70s on the coast tomorrow, down to the mid-60s by Friday. An even bigger drop in store for the inland valleys. It's going to be in the low 60s up in the mountains and down to the upper 50s by the end of the week. Desert temperatures will stay in the low to mid-70s. Before we leave you, we want to say goodbye to our Fronteras reporter, Joe Replogle. She's leaving KPBS in San Diego to become an editor in Costa Rica. We wish her and her family all the best. You can find tonight's stories online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Have yourself a great evening.